Emily, do you trust anybody who starts a sentence to you by saying, honestly,
People who say, with all due respect,
or to be perfectly honest, Emily?
honestly, Alison, I think it's BS.
I don't trust those bastards one bit.
Kia ora, hello, and welcome to this episode of Play Notes Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Duncan.
And I'm also your host, Alison Horsley.
And we're both dramaturgs, meaning we read a lot of plays.
We've likely read the plays you feel you should have, but didn't.
And that's where Play Notes comes in. So this is the second of our Shakespeare plays.
Of our Shakes problems.
Our problematic Shakespeare plays.
That are Italian also.
Oh, Italian?
Yeah.
No, that's not why they're problematic, though.
No. We love Italy. We love Venice in particular,
Yes,
which is where this
love
and the
your
next
food.
play are set.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love the food, all of that. We
Yeah.
just don't love some of the racism. But we'll get to that.
Okay, yes. And some of the violence. Okay, so
Yeah.
the play we're talking about today is Othello.
Yes. Oh, it's also problematic because we have a bad guy who's like, I'm so honest.
Yeah.
And he's not
He's
honest. you
really
guys.
not. So the full title of this play is The Tragedy of Othello, the Moor of Venice.
Yeah.
And the play was believed to have been written in 1603. Again, Alison, this wasn't all Shakespeare's idea, was it? He didn't come up with the story.
No, he probably didn't. We think it was based off of a Moorish captain by Cinthio. So actually a much older story. But let me tell you. But the whole Moor thing in London was kind of hot. It was so hot right now back then. So at the time, anyone who was Moorish or thought to be black or something like that was kind of exotic, titillating, fascinating, / also kind of devilly as well.
Yeah.
So we should probably talk about what constituted blackness.
Yes, we need to address this. So, really, it is a positioning of othering.
Yeah.
And black was, it could be essentially anyone who wasn't pale and pasty like me.
Well, and like me. So really the Moors that they're talking about are going to be anywhere from North Africa, potentially also Middle Eastern. Mm-hmm. So historically would have been of more Muslim descent, but also considered black, right? So it's that whole range of anyone who's darker haired, darker eyed, darker complected, as compared to a pastier English person.
And in saying that, we should now touch on to how the character of Othello has been problematically cast, over the years.
Yeah, so originally the part would have been written for Richard Burbage, who it's said had darker hair, darker eyes, so actually might have passed in some regard for being slightly darker for the time, but certainly not a quote-unquote Moor. Mm-hmm. So we think he might have used some burnt charcoal at the time to black up, quote-unquote.
Yeah. Essentially a version of blackface.
Yeah, blackface. So that is possible. Otherwise, he did have dark hair.
In the 20th century, there's another, probably one of the main examples of use of blackface would be Laurence Olivier.
Yeah. Stanislavski also famously played the role in, I think, 1896. He also used heavy makeup for that. So there's a pretty solid history of white actors playing the role of Othello. And
we certainly don't condone that, and hopefully it doesn't happen.
No.
It shouldn't happen anymore.
Yeah, famously in the 19th century, Ira Aldridge was, I think, the first black actor to actually take on the role.
Right.
And then later, Paul Robeson.
Right.
Yeah, also famously played Othello. And he could only do it in London, like where he could be a black actor on stage with a white actor, with a white Desdemona. So,
right.
Yeah.
And it'd be fair to say, for most of the play's history, it has been white actors playing this role, and that's really only quite recently being addressed in any sort of significant way. So there's quite a bit of catching up
Yeah, James Earl Jones famously played the role, and yeah, so there's been some progress on that front, but it's still quite a touchy issue.
We were going to focus a bit today on what the theatre was like in Shakespeare's time.
Yeah. Yeah, so two types of theater generally at the time. There would have been public theaters and private theaters. Mm-hmm. So public theaters being more like what we have today, what they had back in Greek times. So, which actually Shakespeare's theater would have been more public than the Greek theater because it would have been attended by women and men.
Yes.
Interestingly.
Yeah.
So a little bit more public, but
and all classes of men, so long as they could afford at least a penny, was it?
Yeah. It was a penny to stand and watch the show and be a groundling. But yeah, and then there were private theaters in homes, in wealthy homes, obviously, in religious settings, things like that, scholastic.
And those private theatres, they often had a bit more staging.
Yeah, that there could be a little bit more scenery with that, whereas a theater like the Globe, which was purpose-built, would have had a facade in the back, not unlike the Greek theater, which would have been a kind of multi-purpose set. So, like the Greek theater, it would have been a multi-story facade that had several entrances downstairs, like multiple doors, and then a balcony.
Yes.
Because we need that for Romeo and Juliet, so we know that would have happened.
There's a trapdoor in the floor.
Trapdoor for sure, great for burials and ghosts. Also, some area up above for creating some awesome sci-fi effects, like noise and thunder, that kind of thing.
There were very few set pieces, and we mentioned in the last episode how descriptive the language is, and that there's very few stage directions, and most of what you need to know is what the characters say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's also quite fast moving as well. It's usually, like, the scene changes can be completely different lands and different times.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one other thing to bring up with Othello in particular is, and something that comes into the language, is the use of soliloquy. So like many of Shakespeare's other plays, we've got some blank verse happening, iambic pentameter. But soliloquy, what is a soliloquy, Emily Duncan?
Soliloquy, Alison Horsley, is when a character speaks directly to the audience.
And what are they speaking about usually?
Usually they're telling them something in confidence.
Secrets.
Shakespeare does it very well with some of his more evil characters, like Iago we're going to meet shortly.
Yeah.
Richard III has some very famous soliloquies. Iago, he is really the bad guy.
He is totally the bad guy.
Yes, yeah.
And in this one,
it's his shit stirring that gets this story happening.
Yeah, and he kind of in this soliloquy that we're going to talk about, or that you're going to read for us, he pretty much tells us exactly what he's going to do in the whole play, right?
Yeah, so there's an element of dramatic irony going through the play. We talked about that with the Greek tragedies, where the audience knows things that the characters don't. Mm-hmm. So the audience is far more clued up than Othello through most of the play.
Yeah.
So without further ado, Alison, should I rattle into this Iago soliloquy?
Hit that like it's hot.
Okay, let's see how we go. Thus do I ever make my full my purse, for I mine own gained knowledge should profane if I would time expend with such a snipe, but for my sport and profit. I hate the Moor, and it is thought abroad that twixt my sheets has done my office.
Ooh, nasty.
I know not if it be true, but I, for mere suspicion in that kind, will do as if for surety. He holds me well, the better shall my purpose work on him. Cassio's a proper man. Let me see now, to get his place, and to plume up my will in double knavery, how, let's see. After some time to abuse Othello's ears that he is too familiar with his wife. He hath a person and is smooth disposed to be suspected, framed to make women false. The Moor is of a free and open nature that thinks men honest, that but seem to be so, and will as tenderly be led by the nose as asses are. I haven't. It is engendered, hell and night must bring this monstrous birth to the world's light.
Iago has a lot of problems with Othello.
Does he what?
Yeah.
It is one toxic workplace.
That is what...
we should fill that in. Iago didn't get the work promotion that he was after.
Yeah,
this other guy, Cassio.
Cassio got the promotion. Also, in this speech, Iago reveals that he thinks that Othello might have slept with his wife, even though he knows that he didn't, but he's going to act like he did?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that.
Yeah, whatever helps you.
Whatever fuels that rage, man. So, yeah. So Iago's angry that he got passed over for a promotion. Mm-hmm. He is angry. He wants to fuel his anger toward Othello with thinking he slept with Emilia, who's Iago's wife.
And Othello is his superior.
Yes. And Othello is known as the Moor of Venice. Mm-hmm. So he's a Moor who has converted to Christianity.
Yes.
And who has fought on behalf of Venice against the Turks and other people believed to be of his background, right, or ethnicity. So that further shows his allegiance to Venice. Right?
Yeah. Well, the play opens. He's already married Desdemona.
Yeah, who is...
behind her father's back.
Yes, very sneakily. And so the play opens with Iago and Rodrigo, who is a rich but kind of dim guy, who has quite a crush on Desdemona, waking up Desdemona's father so that he can, basically be alarmed and then go after Othello.
Yes.
But Iago and Rodrigo are foiled, though, because what's more pressing for Venice is that they need Othello to go to Cyprus because the Turks are approaching Cyprus, right? Or they're starting to... They're headed towards Cyprus, and Venice has a military encampment there, and so they're going there to fight the Turks.
They'll go there, and Desdemona is very headstrong.
Yeah, she's very headstrong.
She goes to Cyprus as well.
Yeah, she's like, I'm going with my new husband, and so it's funny. It's like it almost is a red herring that starts out looking like it's going to be a play about a woman who's run off, with her new husband, basically, and then all of a sudden it swerves into being a military war scenario.
Yes.
And then it becomes all of the above. And then the military stuff falls away because they get to Cyprus only to discover that actually the Turks' ships have sunk, I think? They're not making it, so they're actually not a threat.
They don't need to worry about that business.
Yeah, they don't need to worry about it. So
Iago can focus on...
destroying Othello with no Turkish involvement.
And destroying Cassio.
And destroying Cassio. So... ultimately, it's all about a handkerchief.
Emilia is his wife.
Iago's wife.
Who sort of tends Desdemona.
Yeah.
And Desdemona drops the handkerchief by accident. And Emilia remembers that her husband had asked for this.
Yeah, he's been asking for it a whole bunch, and she's like, why are you so fascinated with this handkerchief? Okay, whatever, I'll get it. Because my husband is an abusive asshole, and I want to do something to please him because he's an abusive asshole.
And we're on Cyprus now.
So here's the handkerchief.
Yes. And so this handkerchief gets used, it gets planted with Cassio.
Yes.
It's also used to really fuel Othello's jealousy and paranoia.
Because Othello had given Desdemona this handkerchief early on in their courtship. It had belonged to Othello's mother. So once it seems like Cassio has gotten the handkerchief from Desdemona, and then Cassio is overheard talking about a sex worker who he has kind of a relationship with, Bianca. Othello thinks that Cassio's talking about Desdemona, but actually is talking about Bianca. So it makes it look like Cassio's just been, having an affair with Desdemona and being like, I don't really give a shit about the strumpets, handkerchief, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that fuels Othello to go totally crazy with Iago's prodding. And then Othello kills Desdemona. He strangles her in, a fit of total premeditated rage. Kills her, and then she comes back to life really fast. And then she dies again. And then Iago kills Emilia.
Because Emilia spills the beans.
Yeah, Emilia's really like, wait, Othello, you're really dumb. This whole thing is not what you think.
Yes.
Which is like, oh shit. So Iago then kills Emilia. And then Othello kills himself. And...
it ends a proper tragedy.
ends a proper tragedy. So lots of people dead. Oh, also Rodrigo has died in the course of trying to wound Cassio, and that was something else that was orchestrated by Iago and Othello when they were both against Cassio. But anyway, Iago's driven this whole crazy thing, and he ends up alive at the end, but he must face punishment.
So we should probably talk now about how the play is problematic.
Is it problematic?
You think?
The play is kind of problematic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got the race issue front and center. The fact that everybody in the play is basically depicted as white against this quote-unquote Moor, whose language throughout the play essentially devolves, right? It starts out pretty complex and then gets simpler and simpler.
So his character arc,
Yeah.
how it's presented, is like he starts with this sort of civilized, redeemed chap because he's converted
Noble.
to Christianity. He's noble, and by the end,
He has been having...
bestial.
Yeah,
But-
he's bestial. He has devolved to a place where he, is brutal with his wife, whom he had revered and spoken so highly of in the beginning of the play. So it's kind of a classic tragedy, in a way, because Othello is this character who starts out the play being this honorable figure who basically falls from a great height as a result.
It's
Hamartia. Yes,
Yeah.
Hamartia. Hamartia.
And he realizes far too late. He does have that moment of recognition.
He does.
He realizes he's really badly screwed up. And this
Yeah.
brings us to the other reason why it's quite problematic, and that's the violence meted out on Desdemona.
Yeah, and on Amelia as
Yes.
well. But the violence against Desdemona, we have... He kills her on stage,
And there's a
basically.
scene before that where he strikes her in front of other people.
Yes.
And while it's commented on, no one really steps in.
Yeah, well, because you're stepping into a husband and wife's relationship, and he is a husband who is he's a general.
Yeah.
So he's the highest ranking person in that area. But it is a reflection of how the character has descended, or entered this descent into, I don't know, into a bestial state, which is
As
horrifying.
Shakespeare depicts him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also physically he's starting to experience fits as well. So there's some level of, there's something physiological going on as well. So like foaming at the mouth, kind of epileptic quote unquote fit, like a seizure, happens as well. So there's a lot there. We've also got colonialism
Yes.
happening, because the play is set with Venice being the pinnacle of
Civilization.
civilization, culture, trade. They have beautiful glass, all those things, against Cyprus, which is where they're going to, which is considered more of a military outpost. It's barbarian, quote unquote, and you've got that, and then everything else that Othello supposedly stands for, pre-Venice conversion. Right.
That all the other characters keep bringing up.
Yeah.
There's so much commentary on his
and,
character.
And even Desdemona's father, Brabantio, in the beginning of the play, is talking about how he must have, wooed her by magic.
Yeah.
That she would never have gone willingly. He must have essentially,
Cast
tricked
a spell
her.
on
Cast
her.
a spell on her.
With all this
Yeah.
in mind, it was heaps of food for thought for
Yeah.
people who are thinking about approaching a production of Othello.
Yeah.
We do like to end on,
Our
a favourite
favourite
line or
parts.
scene or part that you like. And for all his evilness, he's a very evil character, I've picked a line from Iago.
Mm-hmm.
Reputation is an idle and most false imposition, oft got without merit and lost without deserving.
Okay. I gotta give it to Iago. That's a pretty knowing line.
Yeah.
The line that I picked is from Othello, which is, I swear 'tis better to be much abused than to note a little. And I kind of messed that up, because it's, I swear 'tis better to be much abused than but to note a little.
Thank you, Alison Horsley.
I destroyed the bard. I'm sorry, everybody.